Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Isaac in Sri Lanka podcast through the Eyes of a Trendsetter Season 2. Today, actually, we are talking about a very interesting topic, and we have a phenomenal guest here to talk about this specific theme with us. And what we're talking about is the power of a multi potentialite. And my guest speaker today is someone who is actually spread across throughout the industry, and also a lot of young people follow him as a source of inspiration and leadership. He is none other than Dr. Kishu Gomez, who is the Group Chief Executive Officer, Dreamron Group of Companies, former Managing Director CEO, Chevron Lubricants Lanka PLC and Chevron Ceylon Limited, former Chairman of Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority and Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau. Dr. Kishu Gomez, it's a pleasure and indeed an honor to have you here with us on this podcast and to discuss some very great ideas about what you have been doing and also your life also.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so excited to be a part of this this morning. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Dr. Kishu, I don't want to take a lot of time in the introductions, but I want to get into the questions because I feel the listeners will have a lot to learn and also listen from your thoughts as well. Actually, Dr. Kishu Gomez has become a brand now, as I feel has become a business leader who has taken continuous strides in restructuring the business in Sri Lanka towards accelerating these businesses towards stellar performances. And also, you have managed to create your brand in a way that young people at right now, they view you as this national business leader. And I think for a young person, essentially what would be important is as a young person myself, I have seen the things you're doing and the kind of discussions and conversations you're involved in. But we would also like to know as how your childhood was and how was that behavior and how did that journey of journey of nurturing start from that younger age. So if you could please share with us a bit about your childhood and maybe some of your school days and how that kind of nurtured you to come to this place that you are today.
No, yeah, great question. Thank you very much for that. The challenge is for me to be able to, concise it. So we came to my residence, or even when I was in school or at an event, I actually, attracted a lot of people, and I realized at a very young age that living is all about being loved by others, being respected by others, being able to get the attention, from others for good things, right? I mean, you can be naughty and get that attraction when you are, a young kid, but for good things, being able to draw that attention. So I realized that little thing, during my childhood, and I thought right throughout my life, if I can maintain that kind of reception, that kind of respect, admiration, that kind of love and attention, that would be the best thing one can achieve in life. So with that, obviously, as a school child, I got into various extracurricular areas. There isn't anything that I haven't done in school. Things that are done in a school, I've done all of that. Just to give you an example, I've done 13 different sports. So I have more time in the grounds and the courts and places like that than in the classroom. So that was me, and I had little talents in every area, be it singing, be it sports, be it speaking to an audience, be it art, you name it. So I've been having those talents, and I made it a point to basically improve on all the talents I have, to be a different individual, to stand out, to be differentiated from others. To be very honest with you, I was not the brightest child in the class. I mean, I did the mathematics for my advanced level, so that basically tells you that I've been a decent student, but I wasn't the first in class, second in class. So I had to find a way to still be a star. So if you can't be the best in one area. You try to sort of lay your hands on many areas, come up with a mix, becomes unbeatable. So that's what my childhood was.
Wonderful. I see that there was this very interesting book I read recently called Range. It talked about this concept of being a generalist versus being a specialist. So I think
Right.
when you were small, you tried being a generalist a lot. You tried so many different things. So it's very admirable. Okay. So there's this very interesting quote, Dr. Gomes. It's the beginning. It's by Plato. So it is the beginning is the most important part of the work. And what would you say was your starting point, especially in your career? And how did it help you to construct the kind of the profession that you have today? So from a career perspective, maybe straight after your education, what were those initial steps that you took?
Right. So, with my sports background and leadership attributes, I being able to develop during my school career, I just wanted to get into an area where I could, use everything I have acquired. So obviously, world was a very big place then, and media wasn't, this where you just press a button, you can understand the whole world in respect of any area. But back then it was very different. We had very limited ways and means of being able to understand the world, see the world, know the world. So I was quite impressed by a marketing executive who was actually, dominating a particular scene. Very smartly dressed guy himself was, one with very strong personality, and he commanded everyone's respect. And he was driving a very, flashy car, red color car, and nice guy, and you name it, all the tires, were in place. So I thought, wow, if I can be someone like this at an early age, it would be great. So between him and I saw a lot of, common things. Things I had versus what he had, obviously at a much lower level. And I thought, if I can get into that kind of a job, I will still be able to use everything I got in me, and down that path, that I'll be able to beat the others. So that's what it was. I then obviously started looking around, and I was fortunate to get into Coca-Cola as a sales executive. And there weren't that many large organizations at that point of time. And there were only a handful of companies one could join. In terms of big companies that have strong brands, it was just you can count them with your fingers in that kind of scenario. So therefore, I was very fortunate at that moment of time and got in. And then with my experience during school time, where I literally spent say 14 hours a day doing studies, doing sports, and engaging in all the other activities. The taste of hard work and why hard work is important, I realized. And I thought, yes, I mean, I am going to fully apply myself, use all the energy I have in me in order to excel, in order to be a star, in order to perform better than others. So with those vibes that I had, with my background and attitude that I developed during school days, I applied myself, worked extremely hard to become the person I have become today.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think something that I really picked up from that was the competitive nature, because you benchmarked that person, and then you were able to strive and push yourself beyond that limit. All right. So just to add on to that question, Dr. Kishu, imagine now you're 20 years old, And what kind of advice, with all the learnings that you have had, would you give to that 20-year-old Kishu Gomez?
Um, well, I would probably tell, Kishu Gomez at 20 to probably, do more studies at that age. Probably, take more time for studies to be able to expand the horizons. Um, Other than that, I certainly don't see anything else he should have done differently. If at all, in education piece. And if I may extend that answer as to what kind of balance you need to have between your education and skill development, I must confess here that when I created an Asian record by becoming the youngest Asian to head a multinational, I had only my first degree. And a lot of people competed at a global level for that position. It is a position, multinational CEO position, especially when it's an American organization. It's a position that is floated across the entire world. And this company, Caltex, that I work for, having presence in 180 countries, there would have been, more than 100 interested in that position. And most of them would have had postgraduate and 2 degrees, three basic degrees or first degrees. And so I got it. So it goes to show that, and today I have, added everything else I needed to have. That's a different story altogether. That's to get the endorsement on the knowledge I've acquired, going through the journey, not for anything else, to be able to say, okay, I have this qualification, but it is more the skills that education is a must. That's the foundation. And without, technical education in the area, you're going to under the sun. But if you do not have skills, there isn't anything that you can achieve in life, right? Be it the business world, be it art, be it music, be it anything else. If you do not have skills, forget it. You cannot win in the modern world, right? So the reason why I mentioned that real life example of mine is to tell everyone that skill in a development is critical, to say the least. And education and skills, getting that right balance. I obviously did all my studies thereafter while working, which is important. And today I keep on chasing new knowledge as well. So short answer to your question is, Kishu Gomez should have focused little more on.
I think that would be a great advice for every 20-year-old listening to this podcast as well. All right. So Dr. Kishu, like, you have worked in different kinds of companies, endeavors, and you have taken upon so many challenges as you have climbed this ladder of corporate leadership. So what I would like to know is, what were some of those challenges that you faced when you were ascending in these roles? And some, like, as you said, one thing was maybe like at 20 you felt you could have like used a little bit more education. But I think as you were taking on these roles, what were some of the challenges that you experienced, and how were you able to overcome them as well in this journey?
Okay, I mean, I can talk about a long list, but let me pick a couple which would be of different nature. Number one is being able to align my individual culture with the broader culture of the organization, right? That's number one. The other is, in every single organization, yesterday, today, and even tomorrow, there will always be subcultures. Right? You look at different functions. Finance will have one, subculture. Marketing guys will have another subculture. You go to a manufacturing facility, you'll have another subculture. And while some people tend to ignore this and some people, don't notice it, these are very distinct cultures. And how much ever you try to create a uniform culture across the entire organization, you will never ever get it, because marketing guys, have a different style. Finance guys have a different style, and you might have a hybrid version of it as well, but that's rare. So the number one challenge is for you to be able to get that alignment. If you do not get that alignment, you will not be able to synchronize and synergize your actions to be able to perform in that environment. Right? That's number one. Number two is you have your attitudes, you have your values, you have your opinions, you have your dimensions, all of that. You have you. And then there is an organization. So there will always be conflicts between what you think is right versus what the organization think is right. And it could be another situation where you think it is right, and some other faction in the organization would think no, that is wrong. So being able to discuss these conflicts across the table, reaching consensus from the business standpoint and from your standpoint, demands a lot of smartness, a lot of talent, and wisdom, instinct, the skill, all of that. So it's not something that you can learn from books. It's something that you need to observe, you need to encounter, learn through that encountering, and develop in you. So for you to be able to do that right, what do you need? You need to be a super human being, meaning you need to understand you, and you need to understand other human beings as well. So for that, you have to have a very open mind, and a lot of discipline in dealing with such very sensitive subjects. And finally, you should be able to get into the hearts and minds of your enemies. Let me use that word. Get into the hearts and minds of your. I mean, there are enemies, during the first encounter, and you get into their hearts and minds, leaving aside the differences, and you then work with them. You will obviously produce brilliant team results. And when the team wins, within that, you will have individual wins and individuals winning as well. So that's how you keep on, performing in a tough environment. So that's number two. If I may take a third one, that would be I have worked for multinationals, for 30 plus years. Firstly, Coca-Cola, which is an American organization, and then Chevron, Caltex, which is an American organization. So 30 plus years, probably the longest, Sri Lankan, a Sri Lankan who has worked for an American multinational for the longest time. So that must be another record. So anyway. So multinationals have their global view, and you have your local view, and some of the global theories and practices and principles and values might be conflicting with your situation. So you got to deal with that as well. When you are a senior manager, when you are a director, when you are the CEO, you have to deal with them, and that's extremely tough. It's very, very tough. It's not easy for you to be able to deal with it, because when you are a multinational, whatever they decide in the corporate office, has to go through. So therefore, managing that was a huge challenge, especially in my capacity as the CEO of this truly multinational American company, where I headed the position for 18 plus years, which is another record, longest serving multinational CEO in Sri Lanka by far. And next longest must have been about 6 years, so 18 plus years being in that position, sustaining results, making that organization Sri Lanka's #1 organization in terms of return on capital employed. Being a listed company, I can share the real data. The return on capital employed went up to 85% and became the #1 dividend payer in the stock exchange, Colombo Stock Exchange. So I mentioned that to say that, I as a Sri Lankan, managed to do all these things with those alignments, adjustments, and facing those challenges effectively and successfully. So my challenge to all you guys is, if Kishore was good, why can't you certainly can go out and do that, and Sri Lanka needs such attitude.
Indeed. I think a question to maybe towards the end of the podcast once again would be, if Kishore Gomez can't, why can't you? All right. Okay. So Dr. Kishore, the next question is also very interesting. This is, I think, mostly about productivity and about how you manage your activities, because from my understanding, like following you throughout the years and just seeing the different kinds of activities you've been engaged in, what I realize is, like, it's like you have like a different take in so many different things, and you're occupied with different fields of life, and you manage these areas pretty well also. So I would like you to share, especially with us like today, how do you balance out productivity, and how do you make sure that your management, especially self-management, is on point? Because maybe some of the routines that you do, or some practices that you do to make sure that all of this is being managed properly as well.
Yeah, sounds a very, very simple question, but it is a difficult one. So number one is you need to like everything you do. If you don't like something, don't do it. Right? So in my case, I've gone and picked things that I like to do, that I like to engage myself in. So when you do things you like to do, you never feel tired. And most people complain because they undertake to do things that they don't like to do. So when you do something that you don't like to do, the start is bad, the end is bad, the middle is bad, right? So you're not passionate about it. You're doing because you're asked to do it. You're doing because you have to do it. You're doing because unless you do it, you're going to be in trouble. So that's the kind of mindset. So that's where a lot of people go wrong. So handling multiple things, there again, if all these are things that you like to do, you're passionate about, you can easily manage your time. There is no issue. Since you don't feel tired, you go back home after working long hours, and you feel tired when you don't have anything else to do which you're passionate about. Now this morning, because I had to do this call, this recording, I woke up early morning. I had to attend to a few office matters, and given that it's a COVID environment, once more COVID is surging, so there are humongous challenges. My senior team is on it, so I had to have discussions with them. I finished that, and then I sort of got engaged with you guys, and then immediately after this, I have to go for a shooting of a commercial. So, and then of course rest of the plan for the day. So it's basically developing a liking towards what you have to do, what you are serving onto your plate, and then dealing with it. So that's important. And then the other thing is it's easy to get engaged, but if you don't excel, you don't have a feeling of success, right? But when you really apply yourself using your passion, when you start delivering results, you feel good, and then others who are receiving the benefit of that success, they'll feel good. And when you see them enjoying that success, you feel good, it keeps you going, right? Short answer is pick things that you like to do. If you don't like to do something and from the outset, and you cannot motivate yourself to like it, leave that aside, get on with something else.
Indeed, very interesting. It's finding passion in what you do. Okay, so Dr. Gomez, like we have wrapped up the first part of the questioning, and now we're going to be going into a very interesting segment called the rapid fire questions. So how it will work is like I'll ask you maybe a choice or just a question to choose which one, and you can give a quick answer of what would you choose, and we'll go ahead with that. So the first question is, if you could choose any actor to play yourself in a movie, who would it be? If you could
Well,
choose
it has to be a Sri Lankan actor. So no, it's a tough one. Whether in Sri Lanka you can find somebody, probably Hemal Ranasinghe.
Oh, okay. If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
I would go back to my school time when I did athletics, and athletics was my whole life at that moment of time.
Wonderful. Okay, this is very interesting. If you could ask God one question, what would it be?
I would, wish for no poverty situation in Sri Lanka, where 22 plus million people can, live a happy life.
So when you're not working, how do you spend your time?
There isn't anything that I don't do. I have few light things that I do, like enjoying the nature, and I am an animal lover as well. So I spend a lot of time with animals, and watching TV. I mean, if there is, let's say, a rugby match or tennis match, or a athletic, meet. Be it something that was done 10 years ago, if there is a repeat telecast, or I can replay it, I would spend hours and hours watching those.
According to you, what subjects should be taught in school but are not being taught at the moment?
I would think creativity. You might say creativity is something that's difficult to teach. I do agree, but there are certain fundamentals that you can teach, and more than that, create that environment within which people will be able to be creative and develop their creative skills. Because without creativity, there is no commercial value today. We live in a brand-driven world. Brands are built by creative people, and we are a small country. We don't have economies of scale, so don't sell products, sell brands. And to build brands, we need the creative younger generation.
Based on that question, actually, my next question was about personal branding. So since you pulled it out, I'm going to talk about this as well. So I would like to get your opinion on this. So Dr. Gomez, according to your view, how do you define the term personal brand of an individual, and what's the significance of having that, especially for young people? Like today, young people, what is the importance of them having a personal brand, and what are some of the key aspects you feel that contributes to maintaining a successful personal brand?
I mean, brand, people brand or human brand is all about in the eyes of others, creating value for others for which you are expecting admiration. So that's personal branding, and that has to be a differentiated value set, not something everyone else would have, or a lot of people would have. A differentiated value proposition that would benefit the others. Since it benefits the others basically passing the judgment that you are a successful, valuable individual who delivers results in the right way. So that's personal branding in a non-textbook definition, right? How do you build that? What are some of the aspects? Obviously, the product should be solid. The foundation should be good. It has to be a quality product. So in the chosen field, having the technical knowledge and having knowledge that goes beyond your core, being able to keep the knowledge evolving, being able to acquire new knowledge, keeping your knowledge current, using that knowledge. So that's the product piece of it. And then obviously you need to be seen as a good brand as well. So therefore presentation is very important, because humans make decisions at the first instance itself. In a day-to-day life, we say first impression counts, love at first sight. Leave all those aside. If I ask you, wouldn't you judge people the moment you see, right? Not consciously, but at least subconsciously. When you see a person, are you not able to pass a reasonably accurate judgment on somebody, to see who that person is, to know who that person is, what kind of job he or she may be doing, his, in level, what kind of family background he or she may be having. So that judgment. So therefore, your presentation, the first impression, your visual is extremely important. It doesn't mean that you have to be beautiful girl. It's not that. It's being in your visual. So there are a lot of things, number of things you can do for you to be able to have that very powerful visual, which also includes your body language, your smile you wear, and how you connect with people, the way you use the language, all those physical things. And then, of course, you can have the quality, you can have your packaging, but you got to perform as well. What are you actually producing as results, in the chosen field? And are you sustaining the performance? Are you keeping on improving performance? And is your performance better than others? Is there a difference between your performance and performance of your competition? And that is important as well. And then the other thing is the communication aspect of it. No point, you knowing your performance, only you knowing your performance. Others need to know your performance as well. So it's not about self-marketing. It's not about, going and telling everybody when you have done, 100, saying, I've done 100. But you got to do that in such a way where others will notice your performance. Others will know that you have delivered 100. Others will be able to check and confirm that, you have delivered 100. So performance in the eyes of others is important. Others need to see, real performance. It's not about showing off, right? Doing only 50 and then presenting as if you have done 100 is not that. Genuinely, if you are claiming 100, physically delivering 100 in such a way where others would see that you have delivered 100. So performance is important. Lastly, I would say it's easy for you to do the first 4 things that I explained about, but how do you sustain it? Brand is built over a period of time. It's not a situation where you excel in something, you have one win, and you expect to be respected for the rest of your life. It's not about scoring a century in one match. It's about maintaining an average of let's say 70 per inning, to be your batting average, or over 50, 60 to be your batting average. So then only somebody will tell you, okay, you are a good batsman, right? So same way here, you should be able to sustain. And in your sustainable efforts, or your efforts to be able to sustain, it has to be acceptable performance from a legal standpoint, from a regulatory standpoint, from an ethical standpoint, from a social standpoint, um, and from a religious perspective as well, right? So these are all values and principles and all that you got to comply with. Otherwise, people will not respect you. It's not performance at any cost, but it's performance in a manner where you will not violate any of these, expectations, so to speak. So that's how you build it. And when you build it, you have a plan to sustain it. You will continue to be a star. You'll continue to be admired and respected and loved by others. And that gives you the life that you desire.
And along with that, Dr. Kishu, what I would love to know is now, I'm pretty sure a lot of young people look up to you as an inspirational leader and someone that they idolize as a role model. So maybe for you, like coming up in those days, especially when you were doing your studies, and at the same time when you were going up the corporate ladder, who did you look up to as a role model, and you wanted to model maybe your certain experiences like that person?
This role model concept the world has been using is not real. You should never ever follow anybody. And if I may take examples, we have 7.4 billion population in the world. And let's assume that out of that, we have 30% younger generation. So that would be, let's say, for easy calculation, 2 billion young people at varying levels. And out of that 2 billion, I would think at least 1 billion would have been following Bill Gates, or would have wanted to be like Bill Gates. If not 1 billion, let's say 100 million. How many have been able to become Bill Gates? Do you have one Bill Gates being produced? No, right? Do you have half a Bill Gates being replicated? No. So my philosophy is more pragmatic. That is, learn from all the successful people. Right? Now, there may be certain things that I'm doing, very well. What are those? Look at it. Large number of youth have basically tried to follow role models, and they've not been able to, become, anybody. So my philosophy is learn from everyone that you can interact with, and in that certainly there'll be learning from people who have achieved big things in life, but at the same time there will always be things you can learn from very ordinary people out there in the society. If I may take an example, you walk into a weekly polar, some of these places you go to buy your daily needs or weekly needs, you would find that there will always be smarter people than other people. If there are 10 guys selling vegetables, you would always find a couple of people doing it much better than the others. So just try to visualize that. So they are doing what is right in their own areas to be more successful than the others. So don't you have a learning from those guys, how they stack vegetables and how they have cleaned the vegetables, how they have removed, rotten parts, and then, you only display the, fresh ones. And they are the ones who would charge 20% premium, 30% premium, or sometimes 50% premium. And you have a tendency to go and get your stuff from that kind of people. And the beggars on the street, I mean, you travel and you sometimes stop near color lights, and there will always be people who would, dilute your heart better than others. And they are conning, they are misguiding you, misleading you, doing all sorts of unethical things to, get your heart open. So we give the benefit of the doubt and we still make a contribution. Sometimes knowing well that okay, they are not genuine, you give the benefit of the doubt. That is because those guys, are doing what they're doing very well in order to, have that little edge over the others. So while what they're doing is unethical, there is a learning for you. So my theory is you learn from everybody, right? Now, I'm saying don't follow me, but learn from me things that you can make your own. Because the things I do, not many people would be able to do. Right? If you look at the entire mix, there will not be another Kishu Gomes, and I can say that very convincingly, because I am into so many areas. Right? I have 3-4 Sri Lankan records, right? And even today I get into running gears. I wear spikes. I go to a ground and I do sprinting, and I say that the day I retire is not the day when I reach 60 years. The day I can run 100 meters in less than 12 seconds, right? So that's just one example. To say that don't try to be another individual, but certainly how a person has done what he has done, what he has achieved, learn from that. It's not following that individual, but learning how that person did it. So that's how, I mean, I don't want to say, the role model concept is obsolete. Don't use that. I don't mind, certainly, but people using it, younger generation using it, use it correctly. Don't follow anybody. And I'm saying don't follow role models, learn from role models. So there is a huge difference between the two. One might think it's the same thing. I'm saying no, not at all. It's completely different. So that is why with all the role models, the textbooks have spoken about, the educational institutes have been talking about what has been taught in the classes. There hasn't been a single successful person being replicated. If there is an example, give me, but that's not real. So don't follow me, don't follow anyone else, learn from me, learn from others, and create your own mix so that you will be a brand as well, rather than failing in trying to copy another brand.
Indeed. Okay, so Dr. Kishore, this will be the final space of the podcast, and it is the emotional space. So actually, as we know, today, as you mentioned also about the now COVID is surging again, and once again we are going to be going bound into our households, and we will obviously have to be innovative, and we'll have to try different ways to get through this pandemic. So in that sense, youth hold an important key to making sure that the right leadership and the right investment of their skill would produce the kind of merits that will reap for the country. So being someone who has experimented and tried so many different things in life, and as you said also with your experiences, it's very unlikely that there's another individual like you in the country. So how what kind of message would you want to give to the youth, especially because the young people who will be listening to this podcast, about how they need to align themselves and transform themselves with what is happening around the world to make sure that they go ahead and also the country goes ahead with them?
If you are specifically talking about the quite beaten world and today's environment as to how we can progress as a country, I mean, number one is everyone being accountable for combating, this pandemic. Because it's not something the government can do. It's not something only the health, workers can do. It's not something the military can control. It's our responsibility, our accountability to ensure that we follow the right guidelines and protocols in order to try and control the pandemic situation in Sri Lanka, where once we have brought it under control, we can perform in a normal environment for good results. So that being that, let me take a much broader view and share my thought on that. The younger generation obviously need to understand the nature of challenge or nature of challenges we as Sri Lankans are faced with. So what is that challenge and what do we need to be in order to encounter that challenge more effectively? So understanding the challenge is important. So depending on which area you have decided to play in, recognize the challenge and see how competitive you are as you are today and how competitive you should be so that you can achieve better results, greater results, or desired results. So understanding the challenge is so paramount, because if one does not understand the challenge, he or she would not have a reason to respond to it in the right manner. So that's number one. Number two, you need to be a very effective competitor in the chosen field. And this competition is not about competing against others. This competition is about competing against you yourself. So who are you? What have you got? What haven't you got? And what is the level at which you need to have the skills? So doing that self audit, recognizing what you got in you and what needs to be further elevated in terms of knowledge and skills and capacity, competence, all of that, and what you need to acquire to make it a more powerful portfolio of knowledge, skills, and talents. So being a more competitive individual is extremely important. I'll end with one more element, that is use your head more than your body. Because if you are not smart enough, how much ever skills, knowledge you have, you will not be able to succeed, because strategy today is more important than before. It's all about strategy. If you haven't got the strategy in place, no point just wasting your energy, applying your energy. So getting the strategy is all about using your head, using your brain, not using your heart. We are an action-oriented nation. As Sri Lankans, we want to do things. Today, you see something, you have a task at hand, and until you perform that task, finish it off, you can't sleep. So therefore, you have a tendency to quickly get on with it, finish it off, and relax. And that's where we have gone wrong as a nation. So I'm saying, okay, tasks will come to you, but pause for a moment, spend some time in trying to understand what the task is, how to do it best, what options you have, what alternatives you have, pick the best option possible, and get a plan in place, draw up a plan, look at the plan, validate the plan, show the plan to others, get their feedback, and make sure that you got the best plan in place, and then apply your body. So use your head more than your body is a critical need for all Sri Lankans, and in that younger generation certainly needs to take it seriously. With that alignment, I have no doubt that we as Sri Lankans will win. We as Sri Lankans will be able to encounter any challenge, and we then can create the world, the country, 22 million people are dreaming for.
Wonderful, wonderful. And just to wrap up this entire conversation, like I think from like hosting this podcast for so many episodes, like I think Dr. Kishore, you gave a very strategic and to the point overview on what is required and what should be essentially focused upon by young people if they are to go forward. And I really have that, like that question is still in my mind. If Kishore Gomez can do it, why can't you? And I think that is something that will always remember also in this podcast as we go along and as the people will listen to it. And finally, I would like to thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being a part of the various activities and events that Isaac is also doing. And Isaac, you have actually collaborated with Isaac in Sri Lanka so many times in the past, and hopefully we are looking forward to having you more on this platform and with the young people talking about leadership and how exactly these skills can be developed better in young people. Thank you so much for being a part of this with us, Kishore Gomez, out of your busy schedule and everything, and giving us this time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the great questions you posed this morning, and I quite enjoyed addressing them. And yes, as you said, being helping your organization for quite a long time, and whenever I can find the time, I shall continue to help. That's for the younger generation. That's the best I can do for the country. Sharing my experience with the younger generation, and yeah, I will continue to honor that commitment. Much, and all the best to you guys.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Kishore Gomez. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're wrapping up another episode of the Isaac in Sri Lanka podcast. We've had a wonderful conversation here, and we're looking forward to having more as the season finale is also coming up very soon. So please stay tuned with us, pay more attention, and we will be producing some amazing content coming your way. Thank you. Have a nice day.